All right, let's talk about the Tampa, Florida real estate market for a little bit. And first of all, of course I'm biased. I work in real estate. I'm Sam, and thanks for coming by the Living in Tampa channel, where we make videos about what it's like to live and move to the Tampa, Florida area. Today, we're gonna talk a little bit about the real estate market in mid-2022. We're gonna talk about who's moving here, what's changed, whether or not you should rent, and kind of what the housing market is like what it's like to buy right now. If you are one of those people that is trying to move down to the area, we would love to help you anytime. Our phone number and email are right there on the screen and in the description down below. Or if you already live here and you're looking to sell your house, we would love to help you with that as well. And don't hesitate to check the chapters here in the video to skip ahead to a part of this conversation that maybe you're more interested in. These chapters are labeled so that you can do that. The first thing I want to start with is, should you buy in 2022? And I would answer this the same as I would in any time. You should buy if you want to. If this is part of your plan long term, then you should buy. If you're making short term purchases, that is a very different kind of buying. That's not acting like a homeowner buying a property. Our current buyers that are looking for houses right now, they're either moving down here for a job or they're moving down here because it's part of their longer term plan. I actually just got off the phone with a man named Dennis, moving from Long Island, New York. And New Yorkers moving to Florida is not a new thing. That's not a pandemic thing at all. That's a very common thing. So Dennis and his wife are about to retire and they want to live on the water. They don't need a big house. They want to have easy water access because they like to go out on their kayaks. They want to have a little boat that they can get out. And so we were just talking through the options with that. And Dennis is a cash buyer. That's also not a new thing for Florida. When people move down here from Northeast states that are more expensive, maybe they have higher paying jobs, they've managed to save enough so that they can buy a retirement house and not have a mortgage. And I want to bring up Dennis because this buyer existed way before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and now after. This has nothing to do with whether or not the market is crashing or if there's a bubble. This buyer existed for the Florida market long ago. Over the past 2 years, there have been plenty of situations where I've recommended that a buyer rent for a while so that they don't make a decision out of fear. If you're my friend and you were making a big decision like purchasing a house out of fear because you felt like you were missing out on some kind of property appreciation, then I would be telling you to slow down and to try to really understand what your motives are. If your motives are a fear of missing out, that is not really a great factor in this kind of decision. And if you're my friend, that's the advice I would give you. I know I said it at the beginning, but it's worth saying again. My income is uniquely tied to these opinions and to this topic. So it's pretty difficult for someone when their livelihood depends on something like this. It's difficult for people to be truly unbiased. And of course, I think I'm being unbiased, but you might have the opposite opinion about this specific situation. The reality is we still get a lot of calls every single week, people wanting to move down here, people asking for our help. And people are not making decisions based on the urgency of the market anymore. But let's talk about why there are so many price reductions. So there have been a lot of price reductions, and that I don't think is a bad thing. The reason that I think a lot of these price reductions are happening is because people are realizing they can't price so ambitiously. You know, imagine you're selling your house and you heard that your neighbors sold for a certain amount and you're like, oh, well, our house is nicer than theirs, so we're gonna ask for $50,000 more. That was happening a lot. A lot of people were doing that kind of thing. And one of the main reasons that people could do this is because often the highest offer was going to waive the appraisal. Maybe not all of it, but maybe some of it. If they were offering $50,000 over asking, they might offer to cover an appraisal gap of up to $70,000. And a lot of those buyers, the house appreciated quickly enough to where they were able to make up that extra cash. So with a lot of people pricing ambitiously based on what their neighbors had done or what they had seen on Zillow, the Zestimate, which we came to find out was ambitious in and of itself. And that's why Zillow actually closed down their buying program, is because their estimates were so based on projections and not so based on the current market. Now people are just lowering prices to what a property will likely appraise for. Now, I mean, some of them are gonna drop more than that because maybe they also expected to sell their house within a week, and now it's been 3 weeks. 3 weeks is still a really short time. It's not crazy for houses to sit on the market for a month or two. Even when we bought in September 2020, our house was listed for a month and we got it under asking price. Like, that is going to become a little bit more normal, and that is how a normal market behaves. But things have changed in the market. Rates are higher. That's the main thing that has changed. Buyers can't spend quite as much as they could have when the rates were lower because that was making their payment quite a bit lower. And a rate change of 1 point does change quite a bit, and the rates have changed. When we bought our house, we got 2.75%, and rates are close to 6% now. Of course, you can buy down rates and do some of those kind of things if you're willing to put up more cash up front, but that doesn't often make sense unless you're really set on being in that house very long term. So to share about another buyer, Eric, who's moving from Washington. He got a new job down here and they're excited to make the move and also excited to potentially live on the water. So they bought at the peak in 2007 in Washington and were very quickly underwater on their house. They decided to ride it out. Now they have $400,000 in equity in their house. So very easily recovered from that, had a stable job through it, so the payment wasn't a big deal. Now they want to take that equity and buy something down here on the water. So since I started talking to them, rates have gone up more than 1 point. So what happened is the top of their budget went from $950 to $750. And Eric is also still anticipating future raises with this new job. So he's in a situation, I mean, he's changing the way he's behaving based on what's changing. But they're still moving down here. He's excited about the job, they're excited about the move, and people are still gonna move. So a lot of people talk about a coming market crash. I question what they mean by that. Does that just mean year over year decline? Because that's not really a crash. What does it mean to have a crash? Like prices, I mean, people being upside down on their mortgages would be kind of crash-like. The reality is that inventory can go up a lot before we're in a normal market. A normal market just means like 6 months of inventory. For the past year, there's really only been about 3 weeks of inventory in the Tampa market. So when we bought our house in September 2020, there was about 3 months of inventory and everybody was panicking that there was nothing available. And it took us a couple months to find our place. Some of that was just we were deciding on specific areas. It's not like there wasn't options, but we were deciding how much we wanted to spend and the specific area we wanted to be in. So in the past couple months, home buying has changed quite a bit. So a good friend of mine, Tyler, actually, you've seen him in some videos, he works with me occasionally. Tyler was requesting offers from Open Door for his house. And Open Door is, one of these big investment companies that was buying a bunch of houses here, and his Open Door offer kept going up and up and up. And then it started going down and down and down. And it wasn't going down dramatically. It's still up way higher than what he paid for his house, but it came down $30,000 or so in really just a couple months. But overall, the housing market, when you're a buyer or a seller, is just less intense. It's a little bit slower. It's still pretty fast when you look at historical markets. If you're selling your house in a month, that's still pretty fast. A lot of the houses that you are probably looking at are selling within a week or so, and that's different. They were selling in a day. So that has increased quite a bit. The time on market has increased quite a bit. There are certainly a lot less bidding wars, and we never really engaged in that kind of bidding war activity. I hate that kind of, even that mindset of we're just gonna toss our bid in there and see if we get it. We did not recommend our clients make offers like that because we want to make an offer to win. If we're not gonna, if we don't feel confident that our offer is the best offer, then let's move on to the next house. And that's how we advise people during the last 2 years, and that's how we would still advise you today. Another thing that became very common during the run-up in the pandemic was waiving contingencies. And I did this all kinds of different ways. So the most common way that we waived contingencies was actually just to essentially soften the appraisal contingency. And this is how that would work. We would offer over asking price, say it was only $5,000 over asking price. Then we would say, hey, we'll cover an appraisal gap up to $5,000 over asking price. So if the house was $250,000 and we were offering $255,000. Hey, if it only appraises at $250 where you were listing it, we'll cover that difference in cash. That's how that works. Those numbers get bigger and bigger as you go on. But then we had one deal where the buyer wanted to offer $30,000 over asking price. He wanted to waive the inspection, waive the appraisal, waive all contingencies. He had seen this place go off the market and he really regretted it. So then he was coming in swinging big. And this was like a condo on the water in Apollo Beach. And he got it. But the thing is, it actually appraised for the new high value, because he realized that they weren't really considering the dock and the boat lift into the price, and he thought that that would push it over. And he was a New Yorker ready to retire and buying his retirement house, just like Dennis from the beginning of the video. That has been common throughout. Retirees from the Northeast. This is a hotspot for him, it really is. Another thing that's changed lately is there are a lot less institutional buyers. Institutional buyers are like Open Door or Zillow or OfferPad or Progress Residential. Those were like coming in, paying cash for houses, and then they were refinancing that into very cheap debt. That debt's not as cheap for them anymore, so they're just not as active right now. But they own a lot of houses down here, and we'll see how those houses come back on the market, or if they ever come back on the market. Those houses might just get sold in chunks to other investors, because they're already, the ownership of them and the interest in them is already divided into all these like mortgage-backed securities and things like that. It's kind of messy. So if you're moving here, should you just rent? Renting is very difficult in this area. Sometimes it's even harder to find a rental than it is to find a house to buy. And as I've said in previous videos, rents have been going up in the Tampa market for a long time. That's also not a new thing. That's not just a pandemic thing here. So rentals may be hard to find, but that's still often what I recommend. If you haven't experienced the area a lot, renting at first is typically what I do advise. The rental market in the Tampa area is very like a small town feeling. Like you kind of have to do it on your own. It doesn't really involve agents that much. Mostly because agents can't get paid very much money on it. On an average rental, if I help finalize your lease, I can only make like $50. But also with a few trips here, you can get to know the area pretty easily. And we talk to people all the time that are moving here, so we're very comfortable advising which areas are gonna be a good fit. And that's one reason we make so many videos, so that you have a little bit more confidence whenever you are making the move. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. We publish videos every single week about the Tampa area. Do you like these kind of market videos? Do you want to know what it's like right now? If you call, we end up having this conversation about your specific situation. But do you guys want to hear it like this as well? And just so you guys know, I'm in downtown Newport Richey. It's a cool area. Thing that's important to know about Florida and about the rental market is that it's very landlord friendly. Isn't likely going to be a state that has rent control. In a couple areas like Miami or things like that, maybe, but the state is pretty conservative. So if you're betting on rents like going down because of something like that, you might be waiting a long time. Actually, some clients that are moving here, they live in New Jersey. They just bought a townhouse, or they just, agreed to buy a townhouse, a new construction townhouse. Their town that they're moving from just started rent control. So that's actually one of the reasons they want to move. If they want to ever own any rental properties or things like that, they want to be in a place that's more favorable for those kind of things. Trying to time the market overall is a risky venture. I remember the first video I made about the market, which is over a year ago. So one of the commenters said, just watch, in 6 months, it's going to be the biggest crash ever. And I responded and said, what are you looking at to tell you that? And he didn't want to say. But here we are a year later, and it's not quite the case. Maybe you think that some kind of crash is coming or some kind of bubble is popping. And then if you really feel that way and you can avoid moving until after then, do that. But timing something like this perfectly is not something that is easily done. It's not easily done at all, and I would recommend at any time only moving across the country or buying a house or upgrading your house if it's something you really want and something you can comfortably afford. As always, feel free to reach out to us anytime. Our phone number and email are right there on the screen and in the description down below. Thanks for coming by.